I want to just start by thanking the Endorsements Committee, which has guided us really thoroughly and with great attention to detail over these next few months. So I want to just give our public shout out and thanks to everybody who has worked on that. I'm going to sort of start with the punchline of what will happen after tonight, which is 1 week from tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm going to kick off the first meeting of the United Democratic Campaign Committee. So once we've made our endorsements, we can figure out what we want to do about it. And all are invited. It's not a restricted membership. So we'll send out a Zoom link for that. Is Mr. Thomas here? Stacy, is your alternate here tonight?
Thompson, yeah, they're here.
Okay, so thank you. I'm going to just take a minute and swear you in, although Stacy's here, just for process purposes, just to make sure.
Thank you.
So thanks, it's good to see you. Okay, here we go. If you would just kind of move your lips after mine. So I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely, excuse me, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
I do. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
And just in case people didn't catch, it's because Joe is my new alternate. Thank
Yeah, welcome. And the reason we go through that formality is because this is a public office. And so we do the public oath of office here. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Glazier to take the roll. Glenn, you're up.
Yeah. Keith Gudger.
Here.
Reed Geisreiter.
I'm here.
Joe Hall.
Joe is muted.
He's on the
He doesn't get to vote.
I think he's on an airplane right
I
now.
think he's on, but I see him lit.
Here.
There.
Yeah, there. Jeannie Allen. Nora Hockman.
I'm here.
Edward Estrada.
Here.
Tony Risimano.
Present.
Susan Doty. Adam Spickler.
I'm here.
I saw his lips move. I didn't hear any.
Yeah.
We heard it. Yeah.
Okay. Karen Darling. Renee Block. Adele Gardner.
Here.
Pat Manning.
Present.
Gigi Kilbert.
Present.
Kirsten Peterson.
Present.
Rachel Williams.
Present.
Andrew Goldenkrantz.
Present.
Diana Alfaro. Kyle Kelly.
Present.
Akin Babatola.
Present.
Cindy Dawson. Clayton Strong.
Here.
Is that here?
Yeah, clear.
Stacy Falls.
I'm here.
Joe Thompson.
Here. Thank you.
I gotta do that, but just for the heck of it. Anyway, Cynthia Matthews.
Here.
Jenny V. Olson.
Here.
Celeste Gutierrez.
Hi.
Vanessa Quiroz Carter.
I just want to ask, if I'm here, Vanessa doesn't need to be here, right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
James Ackerman,
Here.
Leslie Steiner. Here. Gwen Chiramonte,
Here.
Lou Chiramonte,
Present.
Glenn Glazer is present. Ray Spencer Hill,
Here.
Linda Kerner,
Here.
Tim Willoughby,
Here.
Coco Rayner Walter,
Here.
Carolyn Livingston. For the sake of
Glenn?
exercise, yes.
Glenn, Diana Alfaro was on mute, but she stated in the chat she is here.
Oh, okay, got it. We'll go back and mark. Okay. Thank you, Gigi. Okay, Mark Stone. Joanna Schofield. Robert Rivas. Felipe Hernandez. And
Here.
Eshu. Oh, that's Felipe. And Eshu. Robin Misatelli. Jimmy Panetta. Carol Fuller.
Here.
John Laird. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. I know that we do have some club reps here, but Glenn's roster call tonight was for the purposes of voting, for which only the district and the ex officio members are eligible. So we're not trying to leave you out. Adam, you have a question?
Yeah, just want to mention, I called Karen Darling. She's having trouble getting in. I'm going to resend her all the links. Hopefully within 5 minutes, she'll be here, and I'll make sure and flag that when she arrives.
Great.
Just hit me in the chat so we don't disturb the meeting.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Glenn. So I'm gonna turn this over real briefly to Tony and Gigi to take us through what we're about to experience in terms of the protocols of how this is going to work, and then the ballot part of it. You may have questions. We will have another chance for Q&A on that again. So what I want to lay out the agenda is they'll make a short presentation, then we'll go to the presentations by the candidates, and then we will go through our process issues related to making sure that everybody has the right opportunity to vote and can get it right. Is that okay with everybody?
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you and then Gigi.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. The most confusing part of this is the difference between no endorsement and abstain. In voting for candidates, you'll have a choice of voting for one of the candidates or voting no endorsement. A vote of no endorsement means you are not endorsing any candidate for that office. It is not an abstention. If you wish to abstain, simply do not vote in that race. And your ballot will not be counted as among the members present and voting. If you vote no endorsement, you will be counted as member present and voting. So thresholds to gain endorsement for a candidate who is running unopposed on the consent agenda, it's 55%. However, the consent agenda assumes 100% unanimous consent. But if a candidate is pulled out of the consent agenda and is voted on separately, then that candidate requires 55% of the members voting to receive our endorsement. For contested candidate races, the number is 60%. And for no endorsement, the number is 70%. Now, these percentages refer to the actual number of votes. It's not 60% plus one, as it is for a quorum. We have 28 eligible voting members, potential voting members, and you see the chart that lists how many of those votes are required, both for unopposed, contested, and no endorsement. Now, it's different, and a failure to achieve any of the thresholds results in our finding of no consensus. On the measures, you can either support or oppose, and the threshold is 60%. There is no option for no endorsement, but if you do wish to abstain, you simply do not vote on that. And the numbers are different for Greenway and the other measures because we had two separate forum, and the numbers reflect those who were in attendance. That's it. Gigi?
Tony, I do see that the ballot measures ballots do have a no endorsement option.
Oh, they're not supposed to. Oh,
Oh,
God.
sorry. Sorry
Uh,
about that. That was my bad. Sorry.
Okay, just FYI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so one mistake already. This is a great night. Everyone who is eligible has received by now in their email a Google form for both Greenway and the rest of the ballot measures, as well as candidates that we'll be voting on tonight. If you have not received this, please let me know. And I know Gwen was having problems getting into her Google form, so we're going to work with her as a direct email. So if anyone is having problems, please let me know. Does anyone have problems besides Gwen? Oh, Stacy and Carol.
It seems like I got them twice. And
Okay,
I think you said that was just to make sure that my spam filter wasn't filtering them out, but I'm not
Correct.
voting twice, right?
you will not be able to vote twice. So it's recording your email. So if you go in and make a vote, that's it. So choose carefully. Unlike the Republicans, we do not allow multiple votes. So, okay, Carol, did you have a question?
I do have a question. I got the ballot for the supervisors candidates. I got the ballots for Greenway, but I didn't get the ballots for the measures. And I sent you an email and you said I didn't watch the forum or something. I think I didn't pick up on that rule, but we had a Democratic Women's Club had a forum Saturday and I saw all of those people and all of those, people, city and county people talking about it.
I know, unfortunately, this is the bylaws rule that we had to have a separate meeting. And I can't, I understand that you are probably the most knowledgeable person about all these measures. But
the bylaws don't address you being at a separate meeting. They just, so if you stated that somewhere that you must be at these meetings, I didn't pick up on it.
yes, you had to attend. And unfortunately, we had 3 separate meetings. And that's why we have 3 separate ballots to accommodate. Not everybody's going to have been in attendance to all 3 of them.
I see Stacy's questions about no opposition statement. There was nothing filed with the city or the county yet. There may yet be, but there was nothing filed as of Friday night when we're having our forum the next morning. People, who have an idea that they're going to oppose something, that's not opposition until they file a statement, pay their fees, etc.
Okay, are there any other questions or concerns? Yes, if you are an alternate and your member is here, you should not be voting. I mean, you can vote, but we won't count it because the member is the one that, so you can, take that with you as you will. Are there any other questions? Yeah, please don't, to make my life better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gigi.
All right. Thanks.
And again, to follow Gigi's point, if there's any uncertainty, then my advice is go ahead and vote, because then the counters will be double checking based on the attendance for the individual forums in terms of which votes are eligible to be counted and which ones aren't. So there you go. Okay, I'm going to say one more quick thing before we start to get into the candidates' presentations, which is if you've been watching the news the last few days, as I have, and you've been watching the hearings for our amazingly qualified, thoughtful, scholarly, and on top of things candidate for nominee for Supreme Court, and then you watch the cartoonish, childish behavior of some of the questions that she's gotten. What I want to do is just encourage us to remember that while we may have disagreements on issues, we are all on the same team. And so I'm going to just lay out my expectations. Maybe it's the teacher in me that I want us to model the kind of behavior, because we have guests here, that we expect from others. And I know politics can be rough and tumble, but I'd rather do that than try to be the tone police over the course of the conversation. So I expect the best, and let's look forward to it. So thank you for that. And with that, we're going to take this in the order that the agenda was posted on the website. So that means we're going to hear the District 3 candidates first. And we're going to start off with Justin Cummings. The format for all candidates about to come: 3 minutes for presentations, short Q&A, 2 minutes for closing, keeping in mind that most of us have heard you in a longer format before. So Justin Cummings, you're up. And Gwen Chiramonte is our timekeeper. Thank you, Gwen, for doing that. Justin, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Cummings. I'm a renter, environmental scientist with a bachelor's in biology and a PhD in ecology, evolutionary biology with a designated emphasis in environmental studies from UCSC. I'm an educator, fluent Spanish speaker with a bachelor's in Spanish, member of UAW 5810, current Santa Cruz City Council member, and was mayor of Santa Cruz during 2020, one of the most challenging years in our recent lived history. This year, as I conclude my term on the Santa Cruz City Council, I'm here to ask for your endorsement and support for the seat of 3rd District County Supervisor. Professionally, I have over 20 years of experience working and studying the fields of environmental science to help address climate change and wildlife conservation issues. Since 2015, here in Santa Cruz, I've worked as a diversity, equity, and inclusion nonprofit developer to create the Doris Duke Conservation Scholarship Program at UCSC, which seeks to increase diversity in the field of environmental conservation, and the UCSC Citrus Initiative for Drone Education and Research, which is working to increase diversity in tech fields, specifically those related to drones. In addition to this, I've served on the City Council in every capacity as a City Council member, Vice Mayor, and Mayor of the City of Santa Cruz. We're living through a time of tremendous crisis around housing, homelessness, public health related to COVID-19, racial reconciliation, and most importantly, a climate crisis. During 2020 as mayor, I helped lead our community and bring us together after a divisive recall election, and as we face the onset of COVID-19, social unrest after the murder of George Floyd, and the CZU fires. During my time on council and as mayor, I've prioritized bringing opposing community members together to work collaboratively towards solutions to some of our most pressing issues. As we work to develop a sustainable workforce and community, continue to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, navigate a homelessness crisis, housing crisis, and most importantly, a climate crisis, which has already had significant impacts on our community, we need individuals with experience to help us navigate through these difficult times. I believe that I'm the candidate that not only has the most activist, political, and professional experience, but would be a new diverse voice on the board of Santa Cruz County Supervisors as we tackle these major challenges in our community. As county supervisors, my priorities will be expediting the rebuilding of homes and businesses from the CZU fires, reducing carbon emissions and confronting the climate crisis, producing truly affordable housing and planning for a sustainable future, supporting social programs that promote justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, and public health, and advancing an economic recovery plan that benefits us all, including small local businesses, working families, and low-wage workers. I've been endorsed by the California Nurses Association, Equity Transit, SCIU, UHW, SCIU 521, National Union of Healthcare Workers, Pajaro Valley, Cesar Chavez Democrats Club, Monterey Bay Central Labor Council, Monterey Bay Santa Cruz County Building Construction Trades, Sheet Metal Workers 104, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and numerous elected officials and community members, including Fred Keeley, former Speaker Pro Tem, California State Assembly, Greg Caput, Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors, District 4, Luis Alejo, Monterey County Board of Supervisors, District 1, Gary Patton, former 3rd District County Supervisor, Sonia Bruner, Mayor City of Santa Cruz, Sandy Brown, Santa Cruz City Council Member, Kristen Peterson, former Mayor of Capitola, current City Council Member, Paco Estrada, Mayor Watsonville, former Mayor Watsonville and current Council Member, Vanessa Quiroz Carter, Watsonville City Council Member, and many, many other people. I hope that with your support that I'll be able to add your name, the Democratic Central Committee, to the list of endorsements. And I'm here with the hopes that I can answer any questions that you have this evening. So thank you very much for the invitation, for being here. And I look forward to speaking more with you.
Sorry. Thank you, Justin. So if we can have questions coming into the chat, and then while we're doing that, Justin, you and all the other candidates, either before or after your presentation, any documentation, your website, a phone number, whatever you want to do, just go ahead and put that in the chat to make sure everybody has access to that. Okay, any questions for Justin? Questions into the chat. Going once. Going twice. Glenn. Glenn Glazier, help me understand. Why don't you go ahead and unmute and describe what this is? What your question is here.
Hey, Justin, how you doing, man?
Good.
So, if you're elected, do you plan on continuing as an ADM and as a state delegate?
I would love to. Yes.
That's for the rest. It's Assembly District elected member. That's the sort of grassroots leg of the state party.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Okay, other questions?
I could guess to follow up to that. I've been a delegate for the California State Democratic Party since 2018 when I got on council. And so, yes, would be happy to continue to serve in that capacity.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Cummings? Okay, so a question from Stacy. Interested to hear a little bit more specifics on solutions regarding homelessness and or climate.
Great. So for homelessness, and by the way, a quick question: is there time like on these
2 minutes.
Q&A?
2 minutes?
Go ahead and do your thing, Justin.
Okay, great. As it relates to homelessness, I'm very much interested in taking a targeted approach of addressing homelessness. So really trying to, not take a one-size-fit-all approach, but really try to, help determine what are the needs for the different populations of people experiencing homelessness and allocate resources in such a way that we can really do the most with the dollars that are being spent. We do know that some people experiencing homelessness have mental health and substance abuse disorder, while there are others who may need rental assistance to get in housing. And so really trying to figure out how to take a targeted approach at that, I think would be a really good thing to do. In addition to that, one thing that I would really much want to do is continue working with the city. I know that this, as a city council member, the city has received $14 million to address homelessness. The county has a plan that it's coming up with to address homelessness. The city is working on its homeless action plan. And having served on the homeless 2x2 committee, I know how important it is for the city and county to be working in lockstep around homelessness to be most effective. As it relates to climate change, really wanting to focus on infrastructure related to climate change and creating defensible space around fires within the county as a whole. I feel like we had a really good response effort when we were able to get people to evacuate, but it was pretty clear that the state has not been prepared to address climate change and take on such massive fires when they occur. And so really trying to figure out how we can create a vegetation management plan that allows us to create defensible space and take that management plan to people, work with communities to understand how they've been able to help mitigate the impacts of climate change and reduce fire loads in their areas. And then also work with UCSC professors, because we have a tremendous resource at the university where we can tap into people who work on this professionally, and would very much like to bring them in to help work on these issues as well. And I'd say the other climate change issue that's really important that we're working on is figuring out, how we can continue to make sure that there's sufficient water for our communities.
Great. There's a follow-up question that relates to climate, which is, how do you envision guiding our use of automobiles and the impact of single driver vehicles on climate?
Well, I'm very much pro mass transit, which is why I am opposing Greenway and voting no on Measure D. I believe that now more than ever, we really need to be putting pressure on our state and federal officials to get funding to come into local jurisdictions so that we can bring about sustainable, clean transportation options such as rail for our community. In addition to that, I would really much like to see us invest more in our metro and try to encourage more people to use our bus system, because that's something that as a town of our size, many towns of our size don't have. And to the extent that we can try to get more people to use that form of transportation, the better we'll be able to be at reducing our carbon emissions. And then lastly, bike infrastructure is something that I think we need to invest in more, putting in safe bike lanes. But more importantly, I know that the county has been working with the cities to try to bring about the bike share program similar to the one that the city of Santa Cruz had around jump bikes. And that's something that I personally benefited from. I significantly reduced my the driving of my car. And a lot of people I know in the community, although there was some concern about having vehicles, having bikes left on sidewalks and in inappropriate places, I believe that overwhelmingly people really enjoyed that program. And so seeing how we can stand that up at the county level and continuing that work moving forward is something that I want to do as a county supervisor.
All right, thanks. I am going to invite you as we move on. Again, if you anything that you want to put in the chat as far as website or campaign information, and then invite you to stick around if to the extent that you're able. I think it's neat that we have not only multiple candidates, but we have a couple of races. And it reminds us that while you're running for a particular district, that we also have obligations to the whole county. So Mr. Cummings, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And I'm actually going to give you a couple of minutes to close up. Sorry about that. If you have a closing statement, why don't you go ahead?
Great, thank you. Well, in 2020, we experienced one of the greatest climate catastrophes in the history of our region. And as a young local professional, former mayor, renter, I struggled to live in this community. And as a scientist, I believe that we need more scientists involved in politics and in the conversation. And we need to do as much as we can so that we can continue to have people live in the communities they work, and that we're continuing to work on mitigating our impacts to climate change. I've held numerous positions, leadership positions on various committees and commissions as a council member, and have been effective, as I mentioned before, bringing people from opposing views together to work towards our common goals. As supervisor, I will continue to reach out to all members of our community and all of the supervisors within our county and elected officials to work to try to build consensus and create a path forward that reflects the positive change we want to see in our community. This will require us to come up with new and innovative solutions as we address issues around homelessness, housing, sustainable transportation, criminal justice and public safety, rebuilding after the CZU fire complex. But most importantly, we will need to work together to come up with climate solutions to support a sustainable community for future generations. I've had the experience of working with city, county, state, federally elected leaders, and most importantly, you, the community, as a council member, vice mayor, and mayor of the city of Santa Cruz during 2020, which was one of the most challenging years in recent history in our community. If elected, I will be able to give a voice for people who have been historically excluded, given that I will be the first African-American, first renter, and first environmental scientist to sit on the 3rd District Board of Supervisors. I share your vision of Santa Cruz being a place where people from all backgrounds can live peacefully and thrive. And it is the love for this community that inspires and drives me to serve as your 3rd District County Supervisor. I want to thank you for your time this evening and thank you for your consideration. I hope I can count on your endorsement and support.
Thank you, sir. And I'm reminded that you are in fact Dr. Cummings, and I apologize for any mischaracterization there. Okay, so thanks. And moving right along, our next candidate for District 3 is Shebra Kalantari Johnson. So Shebra, thank you for being here, and 3 minutes to tell us things that you need us to know.
Wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you all. Thanks for holding this public forum. I want to thank each of you DCC members for the work that you do to advance the democratic values of equity and strong communities. I'm running because I'm committed to those values. I'm committed to building an inclusive and strong Santa Cruz County. My life and work experience as an immigrant from Iran, a woman of color, a mom, and a social worker are what motivates me every day to do the work that I do. I have a bachelor's in psychology and French and a master's in social work. My psychology training has taught me to listen and understand the experience of the individual, while my social work training has taught me to place that experience in the greater societal system context. This socio-ecological framework is the backbone of governance. As someone who's worked in the field of public health and social services for over 2 decades, I've dedicated my life and career to generating solutions for some of the most complex issues here in our community. This includes substance use, mental health, healthcare, homelessness, immigration rights, criminal justice reform, childcare, and more. I've worked on these issues through cross-sector collaboration and partnership and throughout our county, from North County to South County. My work in the community has resulted in healthy food on families' tables, keeping youth away from harmful substances, helping unhoused youth get off the streets and into housing, ensuring families have access to healthcare, and supporting DACA-eligible community members to have access to higher education. Most recently, I've used my personal and professional experience to move forward equitable policies on the Santa Cruz City Council. I've done this by voting for housing, investing in our youth through increased resources, advancing climate action goals and strategies, and pushing for a services-oriented approach to homelessness that's resulted in the city's Homeless Response Action Plan, which invests a significant amount of resources to help those who are unhoused. I'm grateful for my colleagues on the Santa Cruz City Council and community partners for their work and partnership on these efforts. The last couple of years have been very difficult for all of us. Our community challenges have been exacerbated under the lights of COVID. We've been impacted by health disparities, hate crimes, housing instability, workforce gaps, and climate change in the most devastating form of CZU lightning complex fires. I go into the supervisor race understanding that difficult decisions will be put before us every day. My life experiences, my educational background, my 20+ years of proven track record of doing the work here in our county have prepared me to make these difficult decisions and to serve as a supervisor. I know that with your support and with your partnership, I will contribute to our county's well-being, should I have the honor to serve as your supervisor. Thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you, Shebra. Okay, let's go to questions, please, in the chat. Okay, so question parallel to what we heard for Justin is, how do you envision guiding our use of automobiles and the impact of single driver vehicles on climate in this county?
Great, thank you for that question, Lonnie. I think I'm very aligned with my opponents on this issue of public transportation. I've opposed the Greenway initiative and signed on to No Way Greenway. So that's one tactic and one strategy, is to make sure that we preserve our right of way on the rail corridor to have alternate modes of transportation. I currently serve as an alternate to the RTC. I also serve on the Metro board, and I think that that's an opportunity here for us to activate. I was just meeting with Metro SMART and SEIU members, and they're having a very challenging time with recruitment. So making sure that we build our workforce so that we can have a robust Metro system, that's somewhere that we need to put more effort and resources into. Building out our bike infrastructure, providing incentives, and ensuring that those incentives are available and accessible to low-income community members. It's not enough for those who can afford e-bikes to be able to have e-bikes and to ride on a rail corridor. We need to make sure that that there's that we shift the narrative and that we make a societal norm change that bike riding isn't just for an elite few, and two, incentivize and provide resources to community members who wouldn't otherwise have those resources.
Okay, thanks. And a follow-up on the same point is that we have people here in the audience tonight who are members of RTC or Bus Metro, but who are not actual users. So how can you bridge the gap between the leadership and the people that the leadership serve?
Another excellent question. I myself am one of those people. I used to ride the bus as a student, and I rode the bus 3 days a week over Highway 17 when I was getting my master's in social work. And it's challenging as a mom of a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old who has to schlep them to school, from school, to soccer, to baseball. I'm missing all those games tonight, by the way. So I think we have a lot of work to do. It's not about the elite not writing it, although that is a layer there. But it's working moms like myself, like you, that have a difficult time getting from one place to another. So I think, we need to look at our ridership. We need to look at where along our corridors we have bus stops and where there's opportunity to increase it. We have a paratransit program, a pilot program right now that we're assessing. So more of those efforts where we can connect the dots between bus stops and really just make it relevant and accessible to everyone. I mean, it's fantastic that our students at UCSC and Cabrillo use these systems. That's actually the majority of our ridership is UCSC, Cabrillo, and those who commute over the hill, Highway 17. But we need to make it accessible to you and I, people who are living in this community, whose kids go to this community, who need to get around.
Thank you. Next question is, the county has major jurisdiction over health and human services. And how will you lead the county in solving the complex causes of homelessness?
This is one of the reasons that I am excited to have the opportunity to serve in this role. I've worked on homelessness for a number of years. I worked in the Tenderloin for nearly 4 years with those who were formerly unhoused, living in subsidized housing. I've worked on our youth homeless demonstration program here in Santa Cruz County, brought in millions of dollars in grants. I think that the county, COVID has opened up an opportunity for the county to really realize their role. I also served on the county emergency response team to stand up shelter in place sites for transition age youth. I think that the county wasn't stepping up in the way that they need to. And for a really long time, the cities, particularly the city of Santa Cruz and Watsonville, have really taken the burden of homelessness and housing. We need to really hold the county Board of Supervisors accountable to really taking on the role of that they have the jurisdiction over, and that's health and human services. So I know I only have a couple minutes, but one of the ways to do that is to really advocate for and work with the relationships that I have currently with state legislators and bring in additional resources. Our former mayor, Mayor Myers, brought in that $14 million that my colleague, Council Member Cummings, spoke about. So we need to keep pushing. We have one of the highest per capita rates of homelessness here in Santa Cruz County. It looks different for various subpopulations. I've worked directly with transition age youth. I've worked directly with veterans. I've worked directly with those who have been quote unquote chronically homeless and have had mental health issues. So a specific response to the community, the subpopulations, and bringing in, not just asking, demanding for resources for our community so we can meet those needs, demanding for resources for mental health and behavioral health resources, services, so that we can provide the treatment so that folks can easily get off the streets. I can talk about this for hours, but I know I'm probably out of time.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to combine two questions to try to consolidate them. So 2 questions about the hard-hit communities in North County related to the fires. One is about the difficulties in permitting as they're trying to rebuild, and the county's role in in what you can do to streamline it or ease that burden on families trying to rebuild. And the second is a question about possible partnerships with the indigenous communities who have historic ways of having prescribed controlled burns that might reduce the overall risks.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. I've been meeting with community members up the North Coast and in Bonnie Doon, and I actually have, my kids have gone to school at Pacific Elementary since they were 3 years old. So I'm very familiar with the community. I housed a family of 4 and their giant St. Bernard for about 3 months because they were impacted by the fire. So I don't have firsthand knowledge. But I certainly have been close to it. And I understand that there is tremendous trauma among those community members who either lost their homes or nearly lost their homes. There's a lot of frustration with the county. There's a lot of frustration that here we are over a year later, and I think maybe 80 permits have been issued. So I'm working right now with some county leaders. I'm working right now with some folks who are in the community who are kind of doing pro bono work to really understand where the red tape is and where the challenges are. I think we need to expedite the permitting process. We need to, keeping safety in mind, override some of the requirements for rebuilding. I know that not so much in District 3, but in District 5, septic tanks are a big issue. So we really need to look at where are the rules and laws that are there just for the sake of having them, and where are they there for real actual safety, and then expedite the process. So that's something that I would prioritize and do as a supervisor. To the question that Lou, you put, this is an area that I have a lot to learn about, and I want to thank you for introducing me to Chairman Lopez. I want to partner. I've talked to one farmer up the North Coast who has been doing prescribed burns and is working with the Indigenous community to have culturally responsive prescribed burns, but this is an area that I don't know that much about, so I would welcome and open your partnership and others. I do, Andrew, see this question about Bud Colligan and $500, if I can respond to that.
Let's do it. Let's just get it off on the table and clear it up.
Let's go there. And I responded to this in the interview that I had with some of you. I did receive $500 from Bud Colligan. I also received $500 from Mark Mesiti-Miller, and I also received $500 from Jim Weller. I think this is telling about me. I'm willing to meet, not willing, I want to meet with everyone from all sides. I want to hear their reasoning. I want to understand their justifications. I want to be a leader, and I hope you would select a leader who's well informed when they make their decision. As I said earlier, once I gathered my information and gathered the data, I selected to endorse No Way Greenway because I understand that the Greenway Initiative will take away our options for an alternate mode of transportation. That's not what our community wants, and that's not what I want. Now, when I made that decision, I went back to Mr. Colligan, as well as a handful of other Greenway supporters, and I offered to give their money back, and I offered to take their names off my endorsement list. And the response to me was, you know what? You're willing to listen, you're willing to meet with us, and that's more than we can say about some others. So we trust in your leadership because you're open to meeting with all sides. So that's really bringing people together when you're able to listen to different perspectives, be open, and then make an informed decision.
Okay, thanks. Sheba, we're going to give you a couple minutes to close up and just give us one more pitch.
Okay, you got it. So I want to thank each of you again for your service to the Democratic Party and to our community. I mean, the democratic values is why my family left Iran, why we wanted to have another chance in another country that really truly has a democratic process. So thank you all for your work. My lifelong career in public health and community building and advocating for youth and for social change is really based on my commitment to our community and to our community well-being and my determination to create change. You can count on me to be available and accessible and to take every community member's concerns seriously and to listen to both sides, as I have done on the Greenway Initiative. You can count on me to continue to do the work and focus on issues that impact each of us. This includes affordable housing. I have 100% vote on housing projects that came across City Council. This includes criminal justice reform. I've worked with the probation department and the sheriff's department to significantly change our practices, and we've been acknowledged at the juvenile justice system for the work that we've done. Racial justice, climate action, transportation, infrastructure, emergency preparedness and recovery. And of course, investing in our youth. That's something that's very dear to my heart. I don't take my position for granted or lightly. As someone who was once undocumented, I understand the significance of supporting those who are unable to express their vision for their community through their vote. That was me and my family for over a decade. The challenges that we have are daunting. I just listed a whole range of things we need to work on, but I know it's during these times that we can truly come together and rebuild a stronger future. This takes leadership. It takes not being afraid to take the hard votes. It takes skills and experience, and that's what I have to offer you. No matter where my entry point will be, this is my home. I'll continue to do the work to make it a healthy, inclusive home for everyone. You can count on me to do my hardest, collaborate with staff and community partners, and approach our problems with a pragmatic mind and compassionate heart. And I can't do this alone. I'll need each and every one of your supports. I'm honored and humbled to receive endorsements from many Democratic leaders across our county. This includes 4 of my current city council colleagues, many former city council colleagues, including Mike Rotkin, former mayor and council member for the city of Santa Cruz, and the recipient of the DCC Lifetime Achievement Award. I didn't know there was such a thing. That's really cool. Superintendent of County Office of Education, Ferris Sabah, Santa Cruz City School Board members, Sheila Coonerty and Deb Tracy Prue, Cabrillo College trustees, Christina Cuevas and Rachel Spencer, Smart Local 0023, that's just the bus drivers unions, the Democratic Women's Club, and the only candidate to have endorsements from at least one council member from each city in our county. And that shows my work throughout our community and with each jurisdiction. I hope that DCC will join them in supporting me. If elected, I'll be the first Iranian American woman elected to the Board of Supervisors in this state of California, and the first woman to serve on the board in over 12 years. I am truly inspired to contribute my background in public health, my work in this community at the county level, and to serve our community at the county level. I would be honored to have the support and the endorsement of the DCC. Again, together, it's together that we can face down our future and find solutions to bring about positive change in this community that I love so much and that I know each of you love so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. And once again, you're welcome to stay for as long as you care to. Appreciate your taking the time. Next, we have Amy Chen Mills. So Amy, it's great to have you here. And why don't you take 3 minutes and start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and your priorities.
Thank you so much. First, I just want to say I'm so thrilled to be doing another endorsement forum. But I also want to say that it's been as sort of an outsider to the DCC and these different Democratic clubs. It's been really wonderful to meet people either one-on-one or in groups. And I have felt very welcomed by everyone. And so I really appreciate that from everybody. Many of you probably don't know who I am. I've been living here for 30 years. I have 2 teenagers here. I started as a journalist here for Metro Santa Cruz with Buzz Bazour, if some of you may remember that. And in my career as a journalist and investigative journalist, I won several awards for environmental journalism and also investigative journalism. I also in college wrote a book on the Central Intelligence Agency on college campuses and its interventions throughout the world. After writing an article on depression and medication, I suddenly had this calling to get involved in psychological work. And I ended up working for the Santa Clara Valley Health and Hospital System, which is also known as Santa Clara County, teaching principles of innate resiliency, efficiency, and teamwork throughout the county. So I worked in juvenile hall with the kids in juvenile hall. I worked in the main jail. I worked in the Elmwood jail, the county jail. I worked in the youth correctional ranches with at-risk youth. I worked in the alternative schools, and I worked for specific departments addressing specific issues in those departments when we were contracted to do so. So I served on the leadership team of this resiliency division within Santa Clara County under Bob Garner, the Director of Alcohol and Drug Services. After that, I left because I felt like I was needed to push this model forward. And I co-founded the Center for Sustainable Change, which is a national nonprofit, or was a national nonprofit, and served as the executive director for 10 years. We did work across the nation in the Mississippi Delta with some of the poorest regions in the country. Also in San Francisco with at-risk youth, in Des Moines, Iowa with migrant communities, and also with restorative justice programs. And all of this work resulted in decreased crime, decreased dropout rates, increased civic engagement, decreased recidivism, decreased stress and depression in populations across the board. This role that I played as the executive director called for staff management, fundraising, project oversight, and evaluating outcomes across the board from several partners across the nation. In 2016, I became an activist. I think you all know why. I really almost dropped everything and risked my career because I had clients at that point in private practice who were Republicans, for example. And I helped to organize multiple marches, rallies, and protests against the Trump administration, attacks on women's rights and the environment, and including, I co-organized with one other woman in Palo Alto, the Tax Day March with Anna Eshoo, Silicon Valley Indivisible, and a former member of the Obama administration and close friend of mine, Hal Plotkin. I also helped to organize diversity, equity, and inclusion committees for my global professional organization and my spiritual communities. And this was difficult because there was a lot of resistance to wanting to learn about racism from a lot of people in those groups. And I was able to bridge the gap and get through that discomfort and speak to people about the things that they needed to hear about what people of color were experiencing in this nation in a way that they could be open and learn and come out as changed individuals on the other side of that. And I have written about race and racism in this county, supported Black Lives Matter, supported specific Black Lives Matter activists, and also brought forward the history of Chinese here. You know, George Au's been doing that for many, many years, and others, but I really brought it forward, I think, again, in a fresh way with a younger generation, a new generation of activists who are responding to hate crimes and wanting to educate the community again about our history here, which is that we lived in villages up and down the coast and were burned out and run out of town in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So I think that I'm particularly qualified to speak to these issues. And I think that as a Chinese American woman, it is meaningful for me to be running, and it will be very meaningful if I am elected to the office in terms of healing and restoration around racism that has happened in this county. I know that I have not served on the city council. I did serve on the city advisory committee on homelessness. I also served on the Westlake School Site Council. I have done so much work since my life has been dedicated, you know, and I know I share this with a lot of you, to public service and to making sure that this country ends up as a democracy still, and also that we don't end up burning up in flames. And one of the reasons that I am running is because I feel, as I'm looking into the future, having studied the climate science for 5 solid years now, that it's going to take 2 or 3 more fires for the population here to understand what we're facing. And I think I understand what we're facing. And I think not only do we need to secure water and water security, we also need to secure food security, because I track when there's supply chain disruption related to climate, and there already is supply chain disruption related to climate. So I have seen articles that are about, you know, this person couldn't make their granola bars because there was no ingredients. Beer makers can't make their beers because the hops failed, the hops crops failed. You know, Northern British Columbia was completely isolated for a couple of weeks because an entire part of the freeway slid away. And I'm just, is that the end of my time?
Yeah, we're going to go.
Okay, I'm so sorry, I can't see the phone. It's just a phone to me.
That's okay.
It's just a phone, but okay.
But actually, so the first question is is going to follow the climate thread, which is it's easy to dwell on the magnitude of the problems.
Yes.
So let's talk about some solutions. So can you be specific? These are questions that have come up with the other candidates. Can you be specific on strategies to get people out of single occupancy cars?
Oh, okay. I thought, okay. Well, first of all, I think we really have to focus on the metro. I am no on Greenway. I support the rail trail. I would love to see a rail going up and down. We have a lot of commuters. People don't understand a lot of times that there are a lot of commuters coming from the South County up to work in the North County. You all may understand. I'm not sure if our population understands that. And so we really need to focus on getting people up and down, north and south, either on the metro system on a shoulder line or on the rail trail and or all of the above. I would also say that the metro desperately needs help. The metro needs staff, drivers, and I think the drivers actually need some kind of incentive. They've been through a lot in the last couple of years, and they've been telling me that their morale is low. They're feeling very burnt out. I'm just wondering if there's something that we can do, to give them a little boost. And also I think Sheba's right about being a mom with 2 kids trying to ride the bus is very difficult. I don't think that everyone is going to get on a bike. I was on jump bikes for a while. I finally got my own electric bike. But I think that busing is something that we should really focus on. And when I tried to ride the bus with my daughter just recently, we couldn't figure out the map. So I think we need to make it super easy for people. The lines need to be clear. We need to have enough drivers so that we have enough service, so that the service then generates more service. That's to me what we're looking at right now with Metro. So yeah, yeah, is that the end of time?
Thanks. Yeah, let's keep moving.
Okay.
So the next, I don't have to tell you that questions around housing and homelessness are huge here, and they're complicated and they're hard. So I wonder if you can just expand a little bit on some specific strategies that you would implement if elected to the board.
Well, I served 9 months on the City Advisory Committee on Homelessness. My 2 biggest issues at that time were the homeless issue here in the city and the county, and also climate and climate activism. And so these are 2 huge issues I was thinking about constantly, and I think about all the time, frankly. I mean, it was true back then when I served on the catch that the county needed to come up with the resources to help the situation. I think that there's certainly more state funding coming down the pike. There has been, and I think there will be, because the crisis is getting very, very visible across the state. I think the county could look at county lands and really leverage those lands in a way that either if we're working with developers or nonprofit developers, that we are making the most of those lands in terms of providing either very low income transitional housing or permanent supportive housing for people who need it coming off of the streets, even managed encampments, which I think is something we need to face, that we need to have, because housing first is wonderful, but if we don't have housing, we can't have housing first. And so we have all these people who are just getting moved around. I do not support criminalizing homelessness. That's something that I had a reaction to serving on the catch. And I understand that there are big issues with neighbors and everybody, but I think we have many crises that are overlapping now, and they're pushing us. It's climate, it's housing, it's the income gap across the United States that we are dealing with here. It's housing in terms of our workers here is also at emergency levels. People are sleeping in their cars, working in coffee shops here. So they're about to tumble out of their cars and into homelessness as well. And so I think we need to be able to flex. We cannot just go on with business as usual. It's not possible. So I think we need to learn how to give a little bit and to have compassion and have common sense policies around mental health and recovery. I'd be interested in seeing like the telecare program. Is that it?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the phone was up.
Thanks, Gwen. Thanks, Amy. Okay, I am not seeing other new questions come up. So Amy, I'm going to kick it back to you to take a couple minutes and just close it out and make sure that we know what you need us to know.
Okay, thank you so much. In a couple of minutes, I'll give you everything you need to know. I suggest you look at my website. I'm happy to take phone calls. I mean, I know this endorsement might happen tonight, that's fine. But if you still have questions, I'm happy to talk with you directly and personally. I think that's the best way to get to know somebody. Of course, I don't have all the endorsements having jumped in late into this game, but my endorsement page is telling. It's about what people think about me who have actually worked with me. My journalism skills, I think, are essential because when you're in journalism, you have to process a huge amount of information and you have to look for the gaps in that information and where there are issues in that information, whether it's a budget or whether it's a description of a whole, policy program for the county. And I have no doubts that I can do that. I'm kind of wonky that way as well. You'll see that in my Medium essays, how much research I do. Also, my work in Santa Clara County Health and Hospitals was all about understanding everyone lives in a separate reality. And we all have our own view of the world. And so when I'm working with people, I'm understanding, even if they're misbehaving or angry or upset, that that's because of how they view the world and what their conditioning is, their past. And so I'm very able to work with people to wait until they come down from that and then talk about, how can we connect? I think people who work with me would tell you that I am always willing to listen, and listening is, I think, a unique skill of mine. I taught listening, deep listening, for 27 years. And when you really listen to people, you start to hear, the solutions behind. Sometimes they don't even know they're talking about a solution. I was just talking to someone about the San Lorenzo Valley Water District, and we were talking about what the problems were, and we came up with like a solution together, just by me really listening to her. At least I felt it was a good solution to trying to help the community see that our water is all connected and we all need to focus on it. And what
Okay.
is my time? Is that it?
That's your time.
Okay. That was a hand. Okay.
Pesky timekeepers. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for taking your time. And once again, if you have information or a website that you want to put in the chat, feel free to do so.
Okay.
Thank you so much, District 3 candidates. Again, you're welcome to stick around. And now we're going to shift off to District 4 candidates. Ed Acosta did not reply to our invitation nor send in the questionnaire. So we're going to go right to Jimmy Dutra. Jimmy, welcome to the DCC. Glad to have you. You got 3 minutes to start it up.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me here this evening. My name is Jimmy Dutra. For those of you that don't know me, I am a city council member here in the city of Watsonville, and I am now running currently for the 4th district supervisor seat. I was born and raised in Watsonville, and I attended local schools. When leaving, I attended Santa Clara University, and I earned my bachelor's degree in political science, and then received my master's in executive leadership at the University of Southern California's Sol Price School of Public Policy. While I was in college, I had the opportunity to be an intern for President Bill Clinton in Washington, D.C., a time of my life I will never forget. And in 2010, after having a lot of experiences outside of my community, I returned home to Watsonville. I was a small business owner, and I owned a little pumpkin patch. It was called Jimmy's Pumpkins. And I worked with our local schools and teachers by donating a portion of my proceeds and pumpkins back to them. Eventually, I became an educator for the Provo Unified School District as a teacher, a union member, and now a lead teacher for the after-school program in PVUSD. I've always been a huge advocate for my colleagues and my students. In 2014, I was the first openly LGBTQ member elected to the Watsonville City Council for 4 years. And in 2020, I was elected for a second term and was Watsonville's first openly gay mayor. My roots run deep in our community, and I pride myself as working tirelessly for our community. Watsonville has been faced with a lack of true representation for years, and our roads are continuing to fail. We lack reliable broadband through our county. We face a rise with mental health and addiction. We're in the middle of a trash crisis, which is polluting our waterways and our communities. Our hospitals' doors are on the verge of closing. Homelessness needs real solutions. We need to build farm worker housing, and we need to continue to grow our community engagement. These are some of the issues facing our district, and I have the experience to take our community forward and I'm hopeful to have that opportunity. So thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you, sir. And while we're waiting for some questions to come up in the chat, I'm actually going to start. You mentioned broadband. I certainly agree, and I think most of us do, that broadband is a serious issue, especially we've seen with school kids during the pandemic. But for general services, what exactly is the county's role in facilitating broadband installation as opposed to state and feds?
Well, as you recently, if you watched a Board of Supervisors meeting recently, our supervisor actually voted against implementing broadband into our unincorporated areas. So it was a 4-to-1 vote. And so these are the kind of votes that we cannot risk. And his reasoning was that he did not know what the effects that broadband causes on people. So we need to make sure that we have a leader that will not be making those decisions.
Okay.
You can go back and watch it. It was
speechless. Okay, let's wait for some other questions to come through the chat. Okay, so the question, and you can see it from Barry, is that you have, when you appeared last time, you had kind of a let the voters decide response on Greenway. So the question is really, what are you willing to tell us where you personally stand, and what is your relationship with some of the major donors behind Greenway?
Okay, well, thank you. I've always stood with this position from the beginning, and I know I get attacked by it. I think we should all respect each other's views on these issues. And I believe the people on something this costly should let the people vote to decide whether or not they want to implement the rail. And, to me, this issue needs to be decided by the people. And I know, a majority of the people on this board probably want the rail and, want an answer on Greenway. And I'm just going to be consistent and stick with what I'm saying. And I hope that, we can have respect over that. Last election 2 years ago, somebody in this group attacked me and my deceased father with really nasty campaigning because of this issue. And I know it's politics. I signed up for it, but my family didn't. And, I'm going to continue with that. Have I taken money from anybody from Greenway? I have not. I don't know all my vote donors. I have over 100 donors. Most are in District 4. You can see my over 300 endorsements on my website. I think the people in my community understand who I am and know what I stand for, and that I'm going to, defend South County. But the names that Councilmember Kalantari Johnson said earlier, I have not taken any money from. So, but that's, stories get twisted all the time.
Okay, thanks. We have a question from Kyle that says, you've spoken about supporting farm worker housing, but you opposed Pippin Phase 2. So can you do a little compare and contrast and help us understand through that?
Right, thank you. So there are, I look at each project individually, and a lot of times, people will title things farm worker housing. But as we know, and if you don't know, we'll learn right now, if there's federal money in any of the projects, then we cannot, undocumented farm workers cannot be, they're not available to apply for those rooms. And I do not support that. I think we need to be building housing where people who are undocumented and who are our farm workers actually get to live. I also don't agree with the county keeping the RENA numbers and not allowing the city to have them as well, and to push through a project without actually building the infrastructure around it that it needs. So, I encourage other parts of the community, this county, to do the same. I know people really get upset, about when Watsonville's not building enough affordable housing for the rest of the county, but I think everybody needs to do their fair share and stop, thinking that South County needs to be the one to pick up the brunt of all the housing.
Okay.
I love the conversation to be like, that affordable housing complex in Scotts Valley, that one, where that's housing farm workers. yeah, I'd love to have those kind of conversations as well. It seems like it's always focused in South County.
Fair enough. And I think, again, I don't want to put my thumb on the scale on this one, but I think one of the issues for the board is to fairly distribute the burden under RENA and not have one area of the county have have the lion's share of disproportionate burden. So I speak only for myself on that one. Okay, so a follow-up question about the farm worker housing is, you've mentioned working with farmers to implement that. And so the question from Leslie is to give you a chance to expand on that about, can you give us some examples about some support that you have from farmers and some specifics about how that might happen?
Yeah, I think that we need to, for too long, the relationship between the farmers and, quite frankly, a lot of people that, are in the Democratic Party, they kind of clash on a lot of issues. And I think that we need to build those bridges. And I feel that I'm the person that can go in and have a conversation and bring both sides together, people who are supportive of housing and people who, maybe would not want to see the growth for housing. We're dealing with an urban growth limit issue coming up. And, right now you have the farmers drawing the line saying no more growth. And you have, people who are pro-housing saying we need to be able to build on that land so we can, build more housing. So I think we really need to figure out, how we can solve this problem. And, a lot of times not all land is prime ag lands, and some of the farmland could that's not prime could possibly be used for building this housing, especially so we can get our undocumented farm workers housing and,
Okay.
and not a lot in the projects that don't depend on federal funding.
Thanks. Looks like the questions keep coming in on housing. So you have voted against some projects, some affordable housing projects. And so again, if you can just explain a little bit about what your reasoning was behind those, or either in general or what some of the specifics were.
Okay, I voted against two. They were on the same road that so one was the Pippin and the other one was on the same road, which we had also just built another housing project on, affordable housing. So we have two, that would have been three, and it was high density impacting the infrastructure that wasn't being updated. And they were in my district, and I serve my constituents. They're the ones that elected me, just like I will serve the constituents of the District 4 when they elect me. So that is what a leader is to do. Sometimes we don't agree always with what sometimes our constituents want, but because they are our constituents, we have to meet their needs. And this is something that was really important to them. They were already suffering from high impact, and we already have two housing projects on that same small road. So that was reasoning. I also voted against two market rate housing as well. One was because it was being built on contaminated soil. That is still being discussed by the county and has not received approval. And I also voted against another market rate housing project that was in the flight path lane for the airport and was threatened to be sued. And guess what? We were sued. So I don't want to be wasteful with our city and taxpayers' money. So, but I have supported. I just supported a affordable housing project on Miles Lane. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be also including a mental health. I'm sorry, an addiction facility to it, and that will have farm worker housing that we can. That won't have so many of the restrictions that some of the other federally funded units will.
Okay, thanks. And one more follow-up question on housing. When we talked about countywide responsibility, the question is, how do you see bringing more affordable housing to communities like Scotts Valley, Aptos, and Capitola?
Right, and I think that's it. I think we need to really sit down with everybody at the table. I think it's me. Okay. Hello.
Keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it froze. It's unstable internet. Yeah, this is a conversation that we need to have every District 4, and we didn't have a representative who was really willing to stand up and make sure that there was equitable transfer of housing throughout the entire county. And I think that the Board of Supervisors, that's really starting to change, will hopefully come to the table and make sure that that happens. We also need to work with our cities to have those conversations and to make sure that that equity is being put throughout the county. I find it just, from someone sitting in my seat, I have a lot of people from outside of South County, kind of coming at me about building housing for the entire county in South County. And so I think that to me tells me that there needs to be a lot of conversations need to be happening, and a lot of education needs to happen, so that we can make sure that our next conversation is, that 80 unit affordable housing unit that we built in Scotts Valley or in Capitola, that we can actually talk about those projects, that are being built hopefully one day throughout the rest of the county.
Great. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to close it up and make your final pitch and tell us why you're the best candidate.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here this evening. I know that we all don't agree on everything, but we're all Democrats, and in a time when we see across the country where we are really struggling to come together as a party, I hope that no matter what happens here, that we continue to respect each other's views. Despite whatever happens here, I'm still going to be a city council member making decisions in Watsonville, and a lot of these big decisions will be coming in front of me, and I want to make sure that whatever happens, that we're doing the right thing for the people that we represent. I really appreciated what Shebra said earlier about wanting to make sure that you hear the conversations from all sides before making a decision, I want to lead by that way as well. If you guys ever have something that you want to talk to me about, I haven't heard from a lot of you before. I've been sitting on the council, and if these issues are really important to you, please feel free to reach out to me. When there are housing issues that are coming onto our agenda, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's not wait until these forums to start the conversation. So, I've been a real big voice for our community. I've been doing this since 2014. I look back on that person and I was pretty green, but now I feel like I have a good sense of the issues and where South County needs to be heading, and I hope to have the opportunity to do that. So thank you for having me here this evening.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate your time. And once again, you're welcome to stick around if you care to. And we're going to jump next to Felipe Hernandez. Felipe, you're here, and we welcome you to the meeting.
Thank you. I'm, like you said, Felipe Hernandez. I'm a former mayor, former council member, and now Cabrillo College trustee, as well as a former co-chair and vice chair for the Pajaro Valley Cesar Chavez Democratic Club since late 2009. DCC member for the previous assembly member Luis Alejo since late 2009, and now a DCC member alternate for Robert Rivas. And I too, in case it gets asked, California Party ADEM representative since 2009 for Luis Alejo, and also now a delegate for the now changed 30th Assembly District for Robert Rivas. And, I was born and raised here in Watsonville. I went to all the local public schools. My family stressed the value of service to our community. My father was a farm worker, an apple picker. My mother was a cannery worker all her life. My father worked from 1960 till 1993 as a apple picker. And my mother was, a cannery worker all her life, and, really taught me about leadership and courage. She took part in the Watsonville Cannery Strike, which was one of the longest running strikes in recent history, with the Teamsters in 85, 86. And I took a lot of those values to heart. I enlisted to serve in the United States Army during Desert Storm. I served during Desert Storm. I came home, I attended Cabrillo College. I earned a degree in community studies from UC Santa Cruz. I worked for the United Farm Workers for 3 years as a political organizer. I've worked for SEIU International as an external organizer for nearly a decade, improving the quality of lives for working people all over the United States. I got active in our community, serving as a library commissioner first, a planning commissioner, before moving on to the Watsonville City Council in 2012, and then becoming mayor in 2016. Together there, we made a lot of progress, attracting jobs, fighting for affordable housing, all while protecting our community values. During my time in the council, I pushed forward the first PLA, the Project Labor Agreement in California, the first comprehensive straw ban, plastic bag ban. We brought city workers out of furloughs and into fair contracts. During my 9 years on the council, I voted yes for every affordable housing development and every workforce housing project. During my 2 years on the planning commission, I did the same, voted yes for every affordable housing project. During my leadership as mayor, the previous administration began an outright attack on immigrants. The Department of Justice threatened funding to 14 sanctuary cities across America, Watsonville being one of them, and the smallest city of them all. Most of them were over 1 million in population. It made national headlines. I gave the direction to convert our toothless sanctuary city resolution into a legally binding document, a sanctuary city ordinance. In addition, we moved to join 6 other cities in a lawsuit against the Department of Justice. As supervisor, I want to work with my colleagues and make sure that South County gets its fair share and continue to support facilities like the skate park and the pump tracks that I spearheaded for youth, continue new projects like the soccer fields, dog parks. I want to work with the board to find regional solutions with all my counterparts for sustainable transportation, affordable housing, to relieve homelessness, and to fight for a quality hospital system. I've been endorsed by several people from Bill Monty, Fred Keeley, Luis Alejo, Lowell Hurst, Vanessa Quiroz Carter, Eduardo Montesino, Maria Orozco, Aurelio Gonzalez, the PV Dems Club, Monterey Bay Central Labor Council, Monterey Building Trades, and SCIU 521.
Okay, thanks, Felipe. I sounded like you had some more, but maybe if you could save that in closing, just so we can. All right, thank you. All right, while we wait for some other questions to come in, let's start with some of the issues that have come up for the other candidates. So if you could tell us, let's start with Greenway and transportation issues. Where are you at?
So I unequivocally support rail and trail. I don't support the Greenway initiative. I've already signed on against it. During my time on council, I put on things to support rail and trail, put on items and resolutions. Look, South County residents suffer the impacts of outdated transportation systems the most. We need to provide multimodal alternatives and finish that rail trail. A sustainable electric commuter train, taking people back and forth from Watsonville to Santa Cruz and connecting them to Pájaro, Monterrey, Salinas, and Gilroy is the ideal mode of transportation. And TAMC in Monterey County is already working on a Pájaro station, rail station. So, and especially when it's connected to a bike lane along the rail line, it's a win-win for not only our county, but it's a win-win for our region. That's world-class. We need to also finish that bus on shoulder so that the metro can have an option and not be stuck on the same traffic as everyone else. But what's most important is that we provide alternative modes of transportation from Watsonville to Santa Cruz and reduce those greenhouse gases and get people off their cars and off that daily gridlock and produce a world-class rail and trail. I want to add that during my time on the city council, I started from the very beginning to fight for bike and pedestrian infrastructure. So that means, I fought for green bike lanes, protected bike lanes, continental crosswalks, lighted crosswalks. So we have a lot of that infrastructure within our city now. And I want to continue to do that for our county as well, and our rural roads as well.
All right, thanks. I'm going to indulge and follow that question up. I think a lot of these questions about transportation and housing are based on the paradigm that Watsonville functionally serves as a bedroom community for people commuting up to Santa Cruz to work. So I guess the question that hasn't come up yet is, what about more general economic development and job development in the Watsonville area in a way so that not everybody is forced to commute in order to earn a living and have a good life?
So, that's true. And I think that, there's these things that the state provided when they took out the federal tax zones. The state now provides these opportunity zones. And, to my dismay, Watsonville didn't get one. It was Live Oak that got one, but, that's good. But I want to work with, Barbara Mason, one of our county's economic development staff, and the city of Watsonville, and work with, the different partners to create and apply for opportunity zone designations in all the areas that qualify for these designations, not just in the 4th district, but the 2 areas also in the 4th district that allow for economic development within these disadvantaged census tracts. We need to look at green jobs. We need to look at expanding apprenticeships and trade jobs into South County. We can't bring .com jobs that are going to attract workers from somewhere else. We need to provide jobs that fit the demographics of our own community, so we could put people to work, so we can get hammers swinging here in South County. And also, but part of that is also making sure that we protect our hospital and protect our hospital district, and we successfully create our hospital district so we can keep those nurses working and expand that hospital. I think Salinas Valley Memorial has provided a good example of how they've expanded their trauma center that they've created. We need to do something similar, because people have to go to San Jose all the time. And so we have to create that here locally to create those jobs.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to go back to a question in the chat, and this has come up before, which is, how do you see being able to bring more affordable housing to places like Scotts Valley, Aptos, and Capitola?
So, it's affordable housing, when you think of places like Capitola and Scotts Valley, people think that it's not needed, but, a person could make $78,000 as a single person and still qualify for affordable housing. And this summer, those income limits are expected to go up. So it's time to, fight to keep our residents from being priced out of their own hometowns. And we could start by streamlining our building permit process and lowering fees for both affordable housing and accessory dwelling units and those affected by the CZU fires. Let's work as a region to bring affordable housing into our county. I want to work with my CAO, with my fellow supervisors, and with all our cities on updating and creating inclusionary housing ordinances. Let me step back. We have in our city something that for a while got laid to rest, and during my time on the council, we started it back up. It's called the Intergovernmental Committee. And what it does, it brings in the city with all our legislators, our Senate, Assembly, school district, Cabrillo, and it brings all the leadership, and we address issues together to address all issues, whether it's housing, whatever it may be. And we talk about solutions. So I want to bring this concept, and Carlos, the CEO knows about this. I want to bring this issue and make sure that all our communities do this, that all our legislators, that all our supervisors host these intergovernmental agency meetings at their respective cities within their districts. so that we can address issues like affordable housing, so that we can address issues that the cities have within their communities to their supervisors, so that there's back and forth communication. So that's where I want to bring up these important issues like these housing ordinances, inclusionary housing ordinances. You know, many cities have now a 20 to 25% affordable housing ordinances. So I want to work with the county so that all our cities can create a uniform, streamlined process to reduce fees for affordable housing, for ADUs, and, you know, create a pilot program where we can reduce impact fees for those good players that go over the prescribed 20 to 25 inclusionary housing ordinances, because those are good players that want to go over the affordable housing ordinances, right? So let's reward them somehow.
Okay, thanks. And not seeing any additional questions in the chat. I'm going to give you a chance to, I know we've sort of cut you off a couple of times. So give you a chance to wrap it up and close up and tell us anything else that's on your mind.
Well, I do have some answers to some of the questions that were asked to other candidates too, but
yeah, you got 2 minutes.
I can address. Oh, 2 minutes? I got my closing statement too, but I do have some.
Talk fast.
So, okay, so I'm, you know, the 4th supervisorial district has only had one Latino supervisor. Unfortunately, he probably wouldn't have been here. He was a Republican. Watsonville is 85% Latino, and I think that local government should be reflective of its population. I'm a proud Democrat. I'm a union supporter for life, and not just during elections. I was born and raised in a union household as a child. I was on the picket lines at the cannery with my mother. And one of my most powerful memories was watching my mom talk to UFCW workers at the store, at Lucky's here on Freedom, and Teamsters truck drivers unloading frozen foods and watching them unload them right on the street, right on Freedom Boulevard, on the sidewalk. Not into the store, but right on the street because of the strike that was happening. And as a young 12-year-old, I thought to myself, wow, that's union power, you know, and I was proud of my mother. And to this day, when people say Watsonville is a union town, I think back to that moment and I think of the solidarity in our town. And since then, I became a UFW political organizer, an SEIU international external organizer, and I'll continue to attend democratic events, social justice rallies, labor actions, and I want to continue to be a labor-friendly, progressive Democrat and a champion for the 4th District Supervisor. And I did have some answers for some of the other stuff, you know. I did sit for 9 years on the Central Coast Broadband Consortium of the Central Coast. And I'm aware of some of the bills that I'm still on the mailing list. And there's a bill that just came out that allows, that's going to have some funding. And I believe it's going to get passed. And it's going to be for counties to address funding. And I believe that the way we can address broadband, your question, Andrew, the way we can address broadband is for us to form a JPA, right? A joint powers agreement, so that we can address the management of this funding from cities, counties, and all the respective cities within the county, and address the needs in the by census tract within the county where it's needed, so that this consortium, so that this JPA can distribute the funding for the area within that county. And it's I'm looking at this bill closely to see if it gets funded, and I believe it is going to get funded.
Thanks for that detail. Okay, I'm sorry that we don't have all the time in the world, but Felipe, I know that as Robert's alternate that you're on our roster, but feel free again to put your information in the chat so that we have access to your campaign or your email or any way that you want people to contact you individually, and make sure we have a chance to do that. Okay, I see Ryan's done that. Okay, well, thank you so much, candidates. We're going to end the presentation portion. This is a public meeting, so candidates are welcome to hang out. but I'm going to turn this back to Tony and Gigi to just to guide us through what happens now in terms of the voting process and kind of when we can expect to hear results, and just take us through the end of this. So Tony and Gigi, thanks, and back to you.
Okay. Gigi, do you want to go first, or do you want me to rattle on here?
If there's still any problems, I understand that Adele needed to redo, but I believe you can edit your ballot if you make a mistake. So if it's not working, just let me know.
Yeah, that's what I found also. Once again, just to reemphasize this, for the questions for the candidates, there is a section where you could select no endorsement. That is not the same as abstaining. No endorsement means you are against any candidate running for that office in that race. If you wish to abstain, simply do not vote in that particular race. And on the measures, I see there was also included an option for no endorsement. We actually don't have a no endorsement option available for measures. So we'll take that as an abstention also. But it would be better if you wish to abstain on the measures, on any of the measures, simply don't vote on them, and we'll know definitely that you are abstaining. Failure to meet any of the thresholds for candidates results in no consensus. And for measures, it means no position. That's failure to meet any of the thresholds that we have listed in these charts on the right. I know it's confusing. Tomorrow morning, we're going to start rewriting the bylaws to make it better. It'll all be better in the new office. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks. Don't mean to interrupt. Gigi, were you gonna?
You have till 10. If you can vote earlier, that means the process is over sooner, but you have till 10 tonight to vote.
And then what is your estimate? Are you going to count tonight or tomorrow morning? When can people expect results?
Right.
I believe we will be, as a committee, looking at all the votes, and hopefully it won't be complicated. But yeah, the idea is we'd have the results tonight.
Okay. Okay, other questions? I'm sorry, Gwen, were you going to say something?
Yes, if I'm going to send my ballot by email, since I can't get into the Google form, should I just send it to Tony?
You can send it to endorsements.
Okay.
At, where is it?
Endorsements at Cruise DCC.
.groups.io. I put it in the chat. I will find it and put it again.
It came up. CruiseDCC.groups.io.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other complicating note. We do allow for ballots to be mailed in, and mail ballots have to be postmarked by no later than March 24th and received no later than March 28th. But if we get all of the electronic ballots from all of the members who are eligible tonight and know that there are no mail ballots outstanding, then we could close the voting and just and have it reported tonight. I would guess, right?
I hope no one mails. It would just take that much longer to get the results. But if you are going to mail, just let us know so we can look for it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was another one of the requirements of the state party, that we had to allow for people that do not have internet access to vote.
Amazing.
Which is another reason why broadband is important.
Or at least a modern computer and modem.
There you go. Okay, so if there is no other official business, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.